Extra, her 10 reincarnations. In her first life, Durua devoted all her attention to work, going to work early and coming home late every day, because she wanted to make some achievements, to make her family pay attention to her again, and did not want to return to the main house, regardless of whether she was alone or alone. As for the Chow family, everyone was happy and harmonious. Until one time, she came home late, because of a drunk driving accident, she died. At that time, she thought, she could also have a home, a place where her mother was her home. Who would have thought, in the blink of an eye, she would be greeted by a seemingly endless reincarnation. In her first life, Durua was reborn in the world of martial arts, living in a martial arts family. Although her natural talent was not the best, but in this small body was a mature soul, although not as good as those martial arts geniuses who could always create new moves and make breakthroughs in their family's martial arts. Her martial arts won because of her stability. Others missed the best time to practice martial arts because of their thoughts of failure. She did not know how lucky she was. However, she could focus on practicing martial arts, chatting with her friends, occasionally hearing some male students praising her. In her heart, there was always an obsession that if she could focus on practicing martial arts, in the future, she might be able to use martial arts to enter the path, and perhaps she could return to that world, use the sword in her hand, and kill Yi Jingya. As she gradually grew up in this world, she felt more and more ridiculous. This world was a martial arts world, not something magical. In the clan, every promising junior had an elder in the clan to guide her. She gradually lost the spirit of attracting the clan's attention, and they gradually began to neglect nurturing her. Only then did she fully awaken. Even if she was reborn in a world that worshipped force, it was still a male-dominated society. No matter how persistent she had no intention of getting married. If she wanted to not get married, she could only improve her cultivation and advance to a higher position in the family. From then on, she devoted herself to learning martial arts. Her cultivation rapidly increased. When the clan vaguely proposed, hoping that she would enter the inner sect to study, she readily agreed. One must know that women entering the inner sect means never marrying for the rest of their lives, devoting themselves to the clan, and being more loyal to the clan than men, for the clan to stand firm and prosper, but very few women are willing to stay for the clan. Therefore, this action made the clan elders extremely satisfied, and in the years that followed, they became even more determined to use all their strength to cultivate her. Although her cultivation level was extremely high all her life, she was just the one who guarded the family, causing fear in other families, and there was no incident that required her to risk her life. At most she only briefly instructed her juniors in martial arts. Her personality was calm and gentle all her life, and she died without illness. In her second life, Durua opened her eyes and was already in the cold palace. In this life, she was reborn in a feudal dynasty, an era of concentrated imperial power, reborn in the body of a disgraced concubine in the cold palace. Being in the cold palace, she had no thoughts or intentions of escaping. Having such a peaceful environment and food to eat, she appeared extremely satisfied. But, in the first few years, she could focus on cultivating her previous life's martial arts again, and she could practice health and bodybuilding. But, gradually, she started to have nothing to do, feeling bored to the extreme. Even so, she sometimes unintentionally ran out of the palace, wandering around freely. She began to quietly observe her neighbors. Some wore makeup tirelessly, some were extremely daring, some were crazy, and there were still people who hugged their blankets all day without saying a word, deliberately listening to the palace servants gossiping. Only then did she understand that the woman-child had died. Durua felt that this person was not crazy, she was just heartbroken. She was immersed in her own world. Durua often sneaked into this person's palace. At first she would mumble, then that person would listen to Durua talk, then occasionally say a few words, and then, the two of them stuck together in the cold palace for decades. Although that concubine was originally a young lady from a noble family, she was banished to the cold palace, because of some framing. She did not know about Durua's affairs, and did not know that Durua herself did not know either. However, Durua lived here with peace of mind, because from the first year she arrived here, she had learned from the palace servants' gossip that as long as you entered the cold palace, you would not need to think about going out, unless the emperor was willing to violate the system. The two people interacted. The concubine was surprised to think that Du Roi did not know the world, gradually told her about this world bit by bit, and finally, made her once again learn virtue, speech, conduct, and behavior, music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Of course, Du Roi was also happy to learn to kill time. In this life, there was no such thing as the emperor once again favoring them. The story of the two people's love and romance never happened. The two people became close friends, but legend has it that they both smiled at each other in the cold palace and disappeared. Sure enough, in the blink of an eye, she transformed into the young lady of the main branch of a medical family that suffered the extermination of its family. In the entire mansion, only Du Roi and her younger brother, along with two elders with the highest medical skills, remained. The four of them protected each other and fled. In this life, she was able to accept her new identity with some indifference. Only occasionally could she remember her first world a little. Under the guidance of the housekeeper, they went to a remote mountain village. From childhood, Du Roi and her younger brother were strictly urged by their two elders to study medicine, but because her younger brother's ambition was not there, he was quickly brought along by the housekeeper to learn how to manage the family business. She shouldered the burden of restoring the family's medical legacy. Therefore, her life in this life was very rich, also because in this life, she found something interesting, medicine. When the two old ancestors were alive, she studied day and night, absorbing the necessary knowledge before they passed away. She had mastered and thoroughly understood all the family medical techniques. After the old ancestors passed away, she did not want to stay at home to study medicine, but went out to practice medicine, put knowledge into practice, until she was over 50 years old. Then listened to her younger brother's advice, returned home, passed on the teachings, until she passed away. At this moment, Du Roi began to have the hopeless thought of being able to return to her first world. She was confused, reborn in a world of cultivators, who could see everything at will, but she herself still had no chance. Sigh, if she didn't let go, what could she do? In this life, although she was a disciple of a great sect in the cultivation world, she was only an ordinary outer sect disciple. Even though she had reincarnated several times and had a powerful divine sense, her cultivation showed no signs of improvement. She thought it through and decided not to cause trouble for this life, so she proactively asked to go out and work. Reborn in such a world, but without the best spiritual roots, she thought her biggest regret was not being able to become an immortal, but not having the ability to refine. That's right, refining. Since coming to this world, her greatest gain was knowing that it was really possible to create spaces in this world. Although she was in a sad mood for a long time because she didn't have the chance to refine spaces herself, she quickly became active in making friends with refining masters or people related to refining. Actually, her requirements were not high, she just wanted to have a small planting space. Because in her previous life, when she practiced medicine outside, she was always unable to save patients because she did not have medicinal materials, or because there were not enough medicinal materials. She only hoped that she could have her own space, so that she could continue practicing medicine in the future, and save more people. After all, she was still immortal. Moreover, she might have another life, and another life, she could not know for sure. Of course, she also collected precious medicinal materials that she loved. At the beginning, she deliberately made friends, which made the arrogant grandmaster feel disgusted, until later, someone accidentally found out her true intentions and wanted to help her refine. She had collected more than the grandmaster in half her life, and she had obtained a treasure space that was even larger than what she had asked for. Although her space was not as good as the immortal disciples who could increase their cultivation and spiritual energy, her space was still very large. And the spiritual energy within it was also quite abundant. Having obtained such a good treasure, without anyone around her advising her, from then on, she once again set out on the path of medicine. She practiced medicine all the way, and collected all kinds of medicinal herbs. No matter how rare or precious the medicine was, she wanted to grow them in her space ring. Therefore, her medical career was very smooth. However, she did not know that because of this little good deed, that alchemy master also benefited greatly. In the fifth life, she opened her eyes and unexpectedly discovered that her space and soul were compatible, and she followed her to another world. From then on, in the next few lives, she devoted herself to studying and practicing medicine on the one hand, improving her medical skills, and traveling around the world, collecting all kinds of medicine was her joy. As the years passed, her medical skills improved, and she saved more and more people. She also saw many cases of birth, aging, sickness, and death. The more she experienced, the calmer her temperament became. She had thought that she would be like this, forever and ever. And she had also prepared herself mentally for that. Who would have thought that when she opened her eyes, she would indeed return to her first life?